This is what you get.
Your weekends are on fire.
Because that's how exotic it is.
1370 WOCA. Ocala's information station. 1370 WOCA.
Ocala.
All right, 25 minutes before 11 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. Our next guest is a novelist, but we have, and as many of you know, when we have novelists on, we typically ask that they, come on for 10 minutes. It's actually in fairness to them because we don't want to talk too much about a novel because you want the audience to have enough information to read the novel because obviously that's why you read a novel, for the fun of uncovering things. So we're not gonna break that rule today, but we instead have invited Stephen Carbone to be our guest to talk about the novel, but also to talk about his expertise. He has an extensive resume. He is an FAA certified aircraft technician. He's been an active member of the commercial aviation industry for over 30 years. He was hired by the National Transportation Safety Board to investigate aircraft maintenance issues. There was a story about a military aircraft this morning that one nut or something was loose on an oxygen tank or something. Did you hear that story?
Yeah.
And caused like $62 million worth of damage or something crazy like that. Stephen Carbone also repairs commercial jets. He manages maintenance work crews, and he's got it in him to write a novel as well. His novel, appropriately enough, is called Jet Blast, and it is about the very expertise that Stephen Carbone has. So let's say good morning to Stephen. Good morning, Stephen.
Good morning, Larry and Robin. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, you're welcome. This is going to be interesting. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Bealton, Virginia. It's just southwest of Washington.
Is the world much smaller for a pilot? I always think, because I have to drive how long to get to Virginia, but yet you could come to Ocala, Florida in, 2 hours or something if you wanted to?
2 hours, right. Yes.
So the world is smaller for you, right?
Absolutely.
Than it is for me.
Anybody in aviation, really.
Yeah. So you fly the jets as well as the small planes, or what do you fly?
Actually, I fix them. I don't fly them.
Oh, you fix them?
Yeah. I've always been interested in maintenance, and that's how I got into the industry, was through working for an airline.
Oh, wow.
And then eventually, after 20 years there, I went into the NTSB.
Do you remember, I'm sure you were in the business when Ronald Reagan was president, the whole issue way back then, not to bring this is not a political question, nor am I trying to lead you down that path. I'm just wondering that somebody in your profession, when you have professionals working air traffic control and they feel like they need a little bit better circumstances or a little bit better wages, and then they can't go on strike because I guess there's a law saying they can't. And then they don't end up with a job because the president says you're all fired.
Yeah.
I mean, what was going through your mind when that happened?
Well, it's kind of a thing when you sign on to work for the government, you work for the government, and it's you don't have the benefits of working for, say, a union shop in an airline or a pilots union in the airlines, where you can affect one airline, but you cannot affect the whole industry as itself. When you ground all aircraft because the pilots are walking around the air traffic controllers are walking outside, you still have an option to go to a United or an American if you're working for the airline.
Right,
if you're a PATCO and you go out on strike, you affect everybody.
Yeah, interesting. So the other day there was a story, maybe a few weeks ago, about a jet that crashed into some grapefruit-sized hail, smashing the windshield. And the way I understood it, now I'm not a pilot, but it sounded like the plane landed itself. Is that actually possible? Do we have planes that land themselves now?
You can make you can program the plane to land by itself. It still has to have assistance. You have to drop the gear. The pilot has to drop the gear, and he also has to put out the flight controls for landing. But the plane itself is computerized enough that it can actually fly a flight plan from New York to L.A. and not have anybody input anything as far as steering or altitude.
Okay, so now with that technology, and I want to make sure we interface this with the story in your book, but with that technology and a story like the pilot who landed on the Hudson was Sully?
Yes.
I think so, right?
Chesley Sullenberger and Jeff Skiles.
Thank you. So, and then in addition to that, people are now flying drones, like toys or more than toys. It sounds like this is a different world now than it was not too long ago. Would a pilot who is depending on a computer to fly the airplane be less skilled? I mean, it seems like Captain Scully? Sully. I'm sorry.
Captain Sully, yeah.
Okay, what was he? Because he had, not to say something that sounds bad, but he was an older guy, right? So he was from old school flying. Would somebody from new school flying not be able to do that same maneuver?
You know, that's funny. I think that the true miracle of the Hudson is the fact that Sullenberger and Skiles were in the cockpit. We have become too dependent upon, in my opinion, we become too dependent upon the technology, where we're unlearning what we used to take for granted as far as skill, what we call tribal knowledge. And I would give an analogy like this. I was talking to my wife, who's a teacher, and when we were in school, we used to learn the 12 times tables. But you understood the mechanics of 2 times 6 is 6 times is you take 2 6 times to get to 12. Well, now all they do is they punch in the buttons on a calculator. Right. There's no learning about how you get from point A to point B.
Right.
And it's kind of the same thing with piloting is that, and even maintenance, is that the plane is doing most of the work, and the pilots and the mechanics are actually losing the skill that they have because they become complacent. And just like you had asked, Sullenberger and Skiles landed that airplane on the Hudson. They basically dead-sticked it, which when you have a technical aircraft like that is dependent upon digital technology and everything is electronic, and all of a sudden everything goes out, you got a glider on your hand. And they really had to fall back on the skill and training that they had from way back when to pull a rabbit out of their hat with which is what they did.
A glider that weighs more than most buildings.
Yeah.
About 150,000 pounds, right?
Wow.
You think,
with how many souls in the back? I'm sorry, Robert.
But
go ahead.
you think that the pilots would want to know how to do things manually before jumping into the stuff that is already done for them, just in case something would happen. You think their curiosity would get the best of them because they could say they really flew instead of, oh, I sat in the seat and the instruments flew it.
Right. Actually, Robin, I think the pilots are not too happy with the increase in technology. I think the reason they go into this job is for the thrill of flying and for the fun of flying. They do it because they like it. And I think that, well, let me take you back 1 second, is an airline everybody understands as a business. And the reason why they're so dependent upon technology to begin with is because the business provides a service, get you from point A to point B, but they also have creditors and they also have investors who are looking to get as much out of that investment as they can. So the airlines buy these highly technological aircraft that fly themselves, like you were saying before, Larry. They fly themselves, basically. But they do it in a more efficient and cost-savings way. So the bean counters at the airlines are saying, look, we want you to let the airplane fly it because you guys take too much money from us. You know, instead of going around a storm, we want you to go through it and let the plane fly it.
Oh, okay,
so,
okay.
You see what I'm saying? So
yeah.
the reason that we're so dependent upon the technology is because basically it falls down to the bean counters. But the pilots and the mechanics enjoy what they're doing on aviation. They love fixing airplanes, they love flying airplanes, and they don't really like taking a backseat to a computer.
So, and somebody who knows the mechanics, for example, of the mechanics of a car, if you're driving and you know the mechanics of a car, sometimes you can wing things along the way.
Right.
Somebody who knows the mechanics of it, somebody who doesn't, like me, in a car. And you know, getting back to the automatic, like when you see these news stories about cars that will drive themselves. Mm-hmm. Right now, I'm thinking that'd be great for everybody else because then I'd be safer on the road. But but I still want to control my car. I don't know.
There you go.
If that makes sense or not. All right, we need to take a little break. We'll be right back, and I want to make sure we're talking about the book. We have to be fair to the book. This is a great novel. It's called Jet Blast.
Yes.
And we'll be right back to talk about it. Let me make sure I have my buttons correct. See, I gotta control this thing here. It's just this is like a jet in a way.
Too much technology.
Too much technology. All right, we'll be right back.
Get it for less at the DIY Home Center outlet. Get top quality real wood cabinets the same or less than the big box stores are selling the cheap stuff. And that's not all. Drywall screws big box stores are $6.47 a pound. At DIY only $4.99. Plus DIY has the largest selection of mobile home parts and accessories anywhere. From carpet to doors, get the DIY supplies you need for less. The DIY Home Center outlet. We are your building material closeout store. 2191 Northwest 10th Street, just 2 miles east of I-75.
Hospice of Marion County has an urgent need for volunteers to share a conversation with someone, run errands, hold someone's hand. All you need is a willingness to help others. Our volunteers believe the blessings they receive far exceed the services they offer. Will you consider serving, caring, and making a difference? Call today, 873-7441. Hospice of Marion County, making more moments of life possible.
Hi, this is JP from Penn Flooring here in Ocala. I would like to invite you to come in and visit our spacious showroom where we have solutions for every style and budget. From wall-to-wall carpet to hardwood floors and tiles, we have an unsurpassed selection of flooring. At Penn Flooring, we've provided quality customer service with a family touch for over 25 years. Visit our website at pennflooring.com or come by our showroom, 1201 Southwest 17th Street, just over the bridge. Penn Flooring, quality customer service with a family touch.
Hi, Matt Wilkerson here, your mobile Verizon rep. But not just here, I'll deliver the phone to you in your home. While I'm there, I'll only sell you what you need and I'll personalize it to you. Want to have me get you connected? Then call me at 352-528-0020. I even offer unlimited home phone service for just $20 per month. Just call me, your mobile Verizon rep, at 352-528-0020.
All right, 12 minutes before 11 o'clock, and we're talking about airplanes and flying and everything associated with that, and we're talking with somebody who would know. Stephen Carbone is on the phone. He's written a novel. It's called Jet Blast, and of course we've been picking his brain because of his expertise in the profession of being an airline mechanic, an airplane mechanic, I should say. He's been doing this for over 30 years. Do you know, Stephen, I'm going to tell you something real quickly because I think this will work its way into the story. Here in Ocala, we have a flight school, and they offer discovery flights. So for like $99, you can fly with them and get to see, if, make a decision if you want to go further and go and get your pilot's license, right?
Right.
So I did this one time. Robin and I both did it. And before we did it, the very first thing that the instructor taught us was to walk around the plane. This was just a small four-seater, would you say, Robin?
Yes.
Four-seater?
4 people.
I think it's called a Cessna. I don't even know what they're called.
Okay.
But anyway, so we walked around it, and we had to make sure this worked, and that was the way it should be. And in other words, some kind of a check. And I said, oh, my gosh, if I had to do this every time I drove my car, I'd be crashing.
Yeah.
I don't think I'd be right away before we even get up in the air. I don't think I'd be a good pilot because I'm just not that efficient when it comes to looking at things like that. So, but on the big planes, you have to do the same thing. Like, does every flight require a walk around, so to speak? I guess it's more than a walk around.
Absolutely. Most airlines, if you're flying several legs on one aircraft, they'll do one walk around in the morning. But usually, if it pulls into a gate, the mechanics will do another walk around prior to the departure again. So it's pretty important because things happen in flight or even during landing that you don't expect. We had the rim of a wheel break loose and go right through the wing on a landing one time, and it was supposed to come in and then depart again within a half hour. Well, needless to say, the plane didn't leave because it had a piece of metal sticking out of the bottom of the wing. but those are, it was things that you don't expect. That's what you watch for.
So to take that and to the story in the book is called Jet Blast. It is a novel, but a lot of what you've done in your life you've put into this book. So the protagonist is Daniel Terrace. Is that right?
Tanache.
Oh, Tanache.
Okay.
See, this is what happens. I never know how to pronounce the name. All right. So Daniel Tanache is he a real person? No.
He's based on several people.
Okay.
But
so there's an accident that has to be investigated, right?
Correct.
Okay, so you take it from there. Give us the thumbnail sketch, the movie trailer version, if you will.
Okay. Jet Blast is an aviation techno thriller, and basically it follows, like you said, the accident investigator Daniel Tanache as he investigates a major accident that occurs in Memphis. And but during the way, he has to overcome the hurdles laid out by airlines, the manufacturers, and government bureaucrats who are trying to muddy the waters of the investigation to sort of make themselves look better instead of finding out the real cause. But the thing I'm proud about it is it's very accurate. When you're reading through the book, you're actually doing an accident investigation as the NTSB would do it. And not only that, but anything that can happen in the book can really happen. I think we're flooded with a lot of books that are just off the top of somebody's head, and they're not very accurate. And I like the fact that people in the aviation community have already said that they enjoy it, that it doesn't stop them in the middle and say, well, that couldn't happen.
And in their defense, they wouldn't know because, right. I mean, you would know, though. So that's kind of what makes it cool for us lay people is the fact that we can read this. I mean, especially if we know your background. And now our listeners do. So they will. Oh, now the phones are ringing, too. So do you want to take some phone calls?
Sure.
Let me take some of these phone calls. Do I have one on here already? Good morning. Is there somebody online? No. Let me hit a button over here. Good morning. You're on the air. Thank you for calling.
Yeah. Good morning. Good morning. You fill a void that's been. It goes back to Robert Sterling and Ernest Gann that wrote these kind of novels. So it's welcome to see that void filled again. And I'll ring off.
No, thank you.
Oh, you do a great job in your book of addressing the emotional aspects, because when you are investigating something like this, you have to see the horrendousness of it. You've got all that emotion that's running through you, but then you have to sort of put that aside so you can really investigate the facts. How do you manage to do that in real life?
That's difficult, Robin. It's or anyone else who has to deal with that, with death, and especially in large numbers. You really have to divorce yourself from the scene and just focus on what needs to be done. Often, especially with aircraft maintenance, is if like I investigated an accident in China, in Taiwan, and the aircraft was under the ocean. So you're able to focus right away you're able to focus right away on the records and the aircraft history itself and pull yourself out of it. So it really helps to have that, not to abuse the word, but focus to draw your attention to something and just try to save some time and hopefully find the answer before something else happens.
Remember in the World Trade Center attacks, how many years later did they find a piece of an airplane between two buildings? I can't remember if it was an engine or
recently. It wasn't too long ago.
Yeah, it wasn't. What did they find again? Wheels or something?
I thought it was part of the landing gear.
Yeah. That was just unbelievable. Yeah. Let me go back to the phone. Good morning. Thank you for calling. You're on the air with Stephen Carbone.
Yes, Mr. Stephen Carbone. Say, a couple of weeks ago, in the news, a plane flew through a real bad hailstorm, and the windshield was completely almost destroyed. The pilots could not see where they were going. So according to what I heard and seen on the news, they selected an emergency airport to land real quick, and they pressed a couple of buttons in the cockpit and became passengers of the plane. The plane flew itself, landed itself safely.
Yeah, we brought that up again already. Just repeat what you said earlier, Stephen.
About the technology?
Yeah.
Yes, the aircraft is capable of going from point to point. The pilots will put in a flight plan prior to departure, and then once they pull back on the yoke and they're airborne, pull the gear into the wells, they can pretty much hit a button, and the aircraft will fly the flight plan that's been programmed into it.
Stephen, am I saying your last name right? Since I messed up on Tenacci.
That's right. It's Carbone.
Carbone. Okay. I was just thinking with an E at the end, I might have messed up on your name as well. So, have you been involved in the accident investigations of airplane disasters?
Yes, I have. American 587 that crashed in Bell Harbor. I was involved in I assisted the FBI in the 3 different terrorist sites, Shanksville, Ground Zero, and the Pentagon.
Oh, really?
Air Midwest in Charlotte. There have been a few. I was down in Colombia on an accident, in Taiwan, like I said before, a China Air accident. So I've been involved in a few. Senator Wellstone was killed up in Minnesota, and I was involved in that.
Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh!
So help me out. September 11th is coming up, and this is going to come up again. Somebody's going to tell me that the airplane in Pennsylvania never really crashed there. You're the guy who would know.
No, it was there.
It was there.
I guarantee you, it was there. In fact, I was asked by the FBI to listen to the flight recorder because they wanted to identify the different warnings that were going off. But you could hear the battle in the back and everything. So it really did happen, and no doubt about that.
How do you talk to people that are just starting out to get their pilot's license, and then they want to go into commercial, but they want to actually have that hands-on again? And how can they buck the system with learning both ways?
You mean to get into the airlines earlier?
No, to once they are in the airlines and then they're introduced to all of this new equipment that you brought up, how can they say to the powers that be that they want to learn how to fly that plane if something happens and they need to know it manually? Yeah.
Well, fortunately, several of the airlines are starting to go back to the basics again, and they are carrying their pilots and their mechanics through different upsets in flight that were being lost in the technology. I don't mean to misrepresent it, Robin. They do teach the pilots how to do things in simulators, and they try to teach them as much as they can, especially if there's an accident. For instance, the Air Asiana crash in San Francisco. You would take that lesson and you would put it right into the training. So they do make the most of it. What I'm referring to with the technology taking over is the day-to-day flying, where they're depending too much on the flying on the computer instead of the pilot, and there's time that goes between those simulator trainings. But what would I tell somebody? I would just tell them to get as much hands-on experience doing your private pilot, your multi-engine, and stuff like that, and don't be afraid. A lot of the pilots that I've flown with, they fly the airplane themselves. The heck with the the fuel bills.
That's the pilot I want.
I want to do this.
Yeah. Let's put like a star on their shoulder so I know which plane is the. I'll take that one. I'll take that one any day. All right, real quickly, we've got about a minute and a half left. Good morning. You're on the air with Stephen Carbone.
Stephen, I want to thank you for your work, and you must be squared away to be working with the FBI. Stephen, just watched a special on this about how a lot of the American aircraft liners are flying their planes overseas to the Pacific Rim, have maintenance on them like the U.S. Navy does with a lot of our ships. In other words, foreign maintenance workers. They don't want to put Americans to work. And then if you would comment not only on that, if you thinks that's a hazard, also foreign components or foreign-made parts on planes have been traced back to airplane accidents, unbeknownst to Americans. Are getting on planes with those components. And does he think that's dangerous? In his opinion, I'll hang up and listen.
Thank you. Good question.
Okay, I'll try to be real quick. The components he's talking about are called suspected unapproved parts. Those are called SUPs, SUPs. And the FAA, I know, has been on top of that for years. They've got programs going, try to get in front of that. As far as the aviation maintenance being performed over the seas, again, I refer back to my original point of that an airline is a business. And when you fly an aircraft into, for instance, the Far East to run a Far East run, like say American Airlines has a 777 over there, they're going to want to fix it there instead of bringing it all the way back to Dallas empty.
Stephen, we have to wrap it up. I appreciate.
Okay, thank you
it.
very much.
Thank you. The book is called Jet Blast. I have a copy here. Call me if you want the copy that was sent to us. Stephen Carbone, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Larry and Robin.
We'll be right back.
From Tropical Storm Erica continues to pelt parts of the Caribbean, Florida Governor Rick Scott has declared a state of emergency.
If it comes out of Hispaniola intact, we would probably be looking at a stronger tropical storm aiming at some part of the state of Florida early next week.
Dennis Falcon with the National Hurricane Center. Virginia teenager Ali Amin has been sentenced to 136 months in prison for supporting ISIS. Amin had pleaded guilty to conspiring to provide material support to the group. A standoff continues in Rowan County, Kentucky over gay marriage.
County Clerk Kim Davis's office is still refusing to issue marriage licenses to any couple, gay or straight, despite a ruling from a federal judge and a decision by the 6th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals denying her appeal. She's being sued by the ACLU on behalf of 4 couples.
Fox Radio's Tanya J. Powers. Fox News. We report, you decide.
Yeah, let me guess what you want. You want a